pretty gloomy forecast for the next couple of years, Ed.
It is. So this is from the International Monetary Fund, and this is perhaps the most definitive take on the state of the global economy. And obviously, much of the focus rightly now is what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in the humanitarian crisis. But there are enormous economic consequences for Ukraine, for Russia, and of course for the rest of us as well. And, you know, we've talked a lot about cost of living crisis here in the UK. A lot of that was brewing before this happened. But this only exacerbates it because it pushes up prices of energy and lots of other costs. So this is really their first take from the IMF on what this may well portend for the rest of us. And it's really striking. It's not especially encouraging when you look at it. The world was just recovering from COVID-19. This was supposed to be one of the years when we're going to be bouncing back. But instead, we're going to have a big cut to economic growth in the UK by about 1 percentage point and in many other countries as well. It's worth just looking. I think we might be able to show you a chart of what this actually means for the Ukraine and for Russia. So this is Ukraine, and this just shows their annual growth forecast for each year, and it's going all the way back to the early 1990s. And anything above that kind of line, you know, that straight line in the middle, the zero, is growth. Anything below it is contraction. And just look at what's happened. You can see the previous forecast there, relatively, you know, robust growth in the next few years. But what has happened is they've just cut that down to a 35% contraction this year in Ukraine, the worst recession that, you know, they've ever had since certainly in the post-Soviet era. That's Ukraine, and, you know, that's partly as a result of, obviously, many of those refugees, a lot of people leaving the country, the enormous damage to industry, to agriculture, and so on. But have a look at Russia as well, because I'll show you the same chart, but for Russia. And here, it's not as big a fall, but this is the impact here of sanctions. So, obviously, the previous forecast, again, relatively strong growth, talking about kind of, you know, between 0 and 5%. But now they are talking at the IMF about 8.5% contraction. If you have a look at that red line, that is actually the deepest recession since those kind of years in the aftermath of the breakup of the Soviet Union, which was a terrible time for the Russian economy. So it really just underlines that sanctions are having a big impact on Russia, or are expected to, according to the IMF. And the final thing that's worth just looking at is when you look across the world at the kind of the downgrades we're likely to see to many other countries. So those bars are just showing you how much these countries have been downgraded by. And what all of these charts are basically showing you is just the rate of growth. And that matters because this is about incomes that go into people's pockets or not. So that's less money for everyone, less output for everyone, less activity. And in the UK, it's down by a percentage point, down from 4.7%. Again, that was going to be our bounce back, or part of our bounce back after COVID. Now it's only 3.7%. It's pretty weak growth the next year as well. We're not quite as much affected as Germany or Italy. They have more direct links to Russia, particularly when it comes to energy. But look, you know, there are very few positive stories here. It's a big impact for everyone. Interestingly, Brazil up, big wheat exporter there. But that's the final point to mention here. Because Russia and Ukraine are such big exporters of food and fertilizers, the concern is, in fact, we're already starting to see it, the food prices go up even more than was already expected. And as a result of that, what often happens, you often get social unrest, particularly in emerging economies. And that's what we saw after the last financial crisis, 2008. Remember, the Arab Spring happened after that. It's quite possible, in fact, the IMF says it's quite likely that we get a wave of social unrest after this. So very serious words. You know, I can't remember in all the years I've been doing this, quite such a depressing report from the IMF that has gone from seeing the world starting to bounce back to now seeing a massive problem in the face of both the economy, but also what's happening in the military conflict. This
is a short-term forecast. Have they given any indications as to what's going to happen longer term, or is it just too soon for that?
It's too soon. And to be honest with you, all of these numbers are quite speculative because we just don't know what's going to happen next. And they provided an alternative forecast that says, well, you know, what happens if there are further sanctions? What happens if we actually stop importing gas from Russia, which hasn't happened? You know, that's been the paradox of these sanctions. We've imposed sanctions, but we're still paying for a lot of millions of euros, hundreds of millions of euros for gas. Not so much the UK, but mostly mainland Europe, in particular Germany. If that were to stop, if you were to have a genuine kind of energy sanction, then you're talking about far, far worse consequences across most of Europe. But who knows, that may be what it takes.